Rewiring your anxious brain can get you out of stress, overwhelm, and even physical symptoms. Today, we are going to give you 3 tips on how you can actively be rewiring your anxious brain for the better. I'm Brooklyn Hannah.
And I'm Nick Hanna, and we are Christian brain rewiring coaches helping you reverse anxiety, depression, and other chronic mental or physical symptoms. If you resonate with the content today, please consider subscribing and hit the bell to be notified when we release a new video every Tuesday. Number 1, identify your triggers. Everyone has triggers. That is, the things that make you spiral into negative thinking patterns leading to negative emotions. Some triggers are things that we can control, and some things we can't control. An example of a trigger that you can't control would be when someone yells at you out of anger because they had a rough day. Other triggers could be things like food, if you have food sensitivities, social situations, getting a bill in the mail if you have financial struggles. They can even be simple things like when someone doesn't listen to you, when you're running late, or when your spouse doesn't pick up their mess. Most of us have dozens of triggers, and to identify your triggers, start becoming aware of your thinking patterns and your behaviors. When do you raise your voice at your spouse or your friend? What makes you spiral into sadness or anger? Are you constantly in negative emotions, or is there a particular time of day when this happens? Maybe your trigger is at bedtime because you always worry you won't fall asleep. Identify by paying attention to your thinking patterns and the negative emotions you're acting out on.
Number 2, redirect your negative thinking patterns and change your behaviors when triggers are present. Once you identify your triggers, it can be helpful to have a plan for what you are going to do when your mind wants to stay stuck, ruminating and looping about what it is that makes you anxious. For example, if your trigger is when someone says something negative to you, then you would redirect your thinking patterns to something positive, such as quoting a Bible verse, before you would let your mind go, I can't believe they said that to me. They are so mean. I'm going to let them have it, etc., etc., etc. Which then translates into responding in anger, which is the behavior, which only worsens the situation and heightens your stress response. You are creating a new default response each time you choose a new, healthier pathway to think and behave when one of these triggers is present. So let your new default response to this worry be a Bible verse such as Philippians 4:6, which says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." Redirect your negative thinking patterns and completely just give them to God. When we let our mind spiral into negative thinking patterns, we have negative emotions, which feeds the stress response and wires in anxiety and depression over time. We have a choice on how we respond to any of our triggers. When a trigger is present, try to find a way to redirect your thinking away from the trigger and onto something more positive. It's even more powerful if you focus on God when your triggers are present. For many of you, this redirecting could be dozens or more every single day. When you choose to respond in a healthy, positive way and change the way you perceive the threat or the trigger, that will become your new default response, and these things are no longer a trigger for you in the future anymore. If certain people are triggers for you, then also try not to give in to the negative behaviors such as yelling back at them. If you redirect your negative thinking patterns and change your behaviors when triggers are present, you are going to make great progress. If your wired response is to respond to others in anger or get angry when something doesn't work out for you, change this. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond to what happens to us. You can do this for all of your triggers. If you have sensitivities, your triggers may be food, chemicals, EMF, or mold. If you had a lot of trauma or stress in your past, then ruminating on these things may be your triggers. It's up to you to consciously identify whatever makes you spiral into these negative thinking patterns and emotions. It's powerful also to ask for God's help with this. Ask Him to help you identify the things that set you off and give your fears to Him. There's a reason it says in the Bible not to fear over 300 times. Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind."
Number 3, think greater than you feel. There are times where you're going to feel anxious or negative emotions such as anger, frustration, or sadness. If you've had anxiety or depression for a while, it may seem like these thoughts are just spiraling out of control and going all over the place some days. It can really help to try and think greater than how you feel emotionally. It may be as simple as getting outside and doing something you enjoy, such as golfing or going for a walk. Your brain doesn't know the difference between you actually being happy or faking it. So just put a smile on your face and enjoy the moment with your family, even if you feel down. Your brain knows that whenever you're smiling and laughing, you're actually happy, and it'll start believing that you are. Although this is tough, try not to verbalize any negative things on those days when you're feeling lower emotionally.
While our mind seems to be looping about negativity or worry, we can control what we talk about. A lot of times I would sit and talk about one of my triggers for hours or even all day to him, sorry. And for me, it was things like social situations, foods and diets, and symptoms of chronic illness and how I was going to get out of it. One day my husband, Nick, was just like, can we just have a normal conversation? Can we just talk like a normal, healthy person? Can we just talk normal? And I was like, okay, sure. Okay, I'm going to really try to do this. So the rest of the night we walked around, we had fun, and we talked normal. I felt miserable in my mind, and so it was uncomfortable. But then the next day, I thought greater than I felt, and I woke up and I was out of the dark, depressive, and anxious thoughts. So sometimes we just have to get out, do something fun, and talk positively, greater than we feel. So if you're feeling anxious in your mind, try to make it a goal to talk about God more than your stressors or problems of this world, and think about that as well. So one of my favorite ways to wire out anxiety and depression is to memorize scripture. So I'd memorize scripture several times a week, several scriptures a week, and constantly keep my mind stayed on the Lord. So we are to meditate on scripture day and night, like Isaiah 26:3 says. You will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. So there you have it. If you consistently use all three of these tips, then you are well on your way to rewiring your anxious brain.
If you're looking to get the best tips on rewiring your brain for health and happiness from a Christian perspective, join our free Facebook group. The link is below. If you're interested in having us help you rewire your brain so you can live happy and healthy again, schedule a free call below. We look forward in hearing from you all.
God bless.
And Godspeed.